Okay. All right. So this is a question, Mark. Speaking, I guess, of getting cold, we think a lot about that heating oil right in the tank. You want to make sure that tank is nice and full with lots of oil to burn for the winter. And this is a question about when buying a house. Can you maybe explain a little bit more about this, Mark? Buying a house and the fuel that comes along with it, or who pays for that, or how does that all work when you got a fuel cost in the house?
It's a great question, and you never want to be surprised at a closing, right? There's a lot going on, a lot of emotion, a lot of money changing hands, and you certainly don't want to have a last-minute surprise of $1,000, right? It's not uncommon that a fuel tank would be $1,000 right now. Fuel prices have gone up substantially over the last few years, and all indications are they're going to continue to go up with all that is going on. However, when you're at a closing, what happens is you are technically closing, right? So you're closing out the cash register. So, for example, real estate taxes, they are apportioned as of the day. So if we're closing today on Friday the 13th, a lucky day to be closing, we would be adjusting the real estate taxes for this quarter. Right, so October, November, December, you would be putting forth the amount from the 1st to the 13th to the seller, and then the 13th all the way through December 31st to the buyer, because that's who will be owning the property. Now, with fuel, oil, it's a little bit different because that's actually there, right? So what we typically see is the common practice is it's owned by the seller and is being delivered to the buyer. So the buyer actually pays the seller. With that, the seller needs to get a reading. So they need to obtain a final oil reading. So an oil company will happily come down because they would love that business. Shout out to Rand Handy Oil, one of the supporters of ATD, and a good friend, Kyle Rand. They would come down and they would test that oil. They would measure how much is there, and they would give the day's value of that oil, and they would provide a proof receipt. And then the buyer would be obligated to make that payment to the seller, in essence, paying the seller for the fuel that came with the house. But like anything, it could be contracted. So we have flexibility within the purchase and sale agreement. And if this is something the seller would like to give to the buyer, they can certainly do that. But more often than not, the buyer, if they're buying a home that is heated by oil fuel, they need to be prepared that there's going to be an adjustment, just like there would be for condominium fees for the month, right?
Okay.
Just like there would be for taxes, and then water and sewer. It's also oil, so you don't want to be surprised.
Okay, but when you said the closing date, I'm not paying for the oil that they're using while they're still there. Is it the closing date?
It's the closing date, so it's whatever
oil is in there that day.
Yes.
Specifically, okay.
That's right.
All right.
Or as close to the day as you could possibly get feasibly.
Okay, and what is there? So there really is like a separate fee for that? Is it not that you're just buying the whole darn house? They don't just throw it in there?
Some folks do. Some folks do. But now that it's so costly, it's it's $900 to $1,000 often that we see that there's an adjustment, and people don't tend to want to gift that away.
Yeah.
However, they can, and it's also keep in mind that this is something you want to be paying attention to at the time you're signing your purchase and sale agreement, because that's when it's agreed upon.
Yep.
And you want to understand that, and you want to be working with an attorney that's representing your interests, not simply the banks. We've talked about this a few times. Sometimes you have banks that will provide a free attorney. That attorney is not representing you. You want an attorney for the buyer who will explain this to you and prepare you so that financially you're ready for that closing.
Yeah, because you're right in this case. So these are things you need to know about. And are there strategies to picking a closing date? Can we get
it's funny. We can. No, it's fine. I love it. To me, it doesn't matter, right? It's 6 1/2 dozen of the other, as they say. But a lot of times, historically, people attempt to close near the end of the month, and the reason being is because of the interest.
Okay.
So you're paying interest backwards. You're paying it in arrears, and closer to the end of the month would be less interest. So if you were to close on the 5th of the month, your mortgage company will be asking you to pay the interest for the rest of that month. However, your next mortgage payment will skip a month, right? So you're paying the same amount. It's just a matter of when you're paying it. So we encourage people not to close at the end of the month because historically that's when most closings happen, and you run into issues with moving companies and logistics.
Yeah, because everybody else is doing the same thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Break the mold. Break the status quo.
All right. Well, that's okay. Interesting. Okay. No, I appreciate that stuff because it's fascinating, and I didn't even think about the whole fuel issue, but I guess, maybe it was used to be kind of, put in as part of the whole package, but maybe you're right with the price now is such a significant amount, and some of these tanks hold a lot of oil that could be a good chunk of change, and they're not going to be draining it and taking it with them.
Right. They're not doing that. And it is significant. And again, what you don't want is to be surprised. So as long as you're proactive and you're asking the right questions and your professionals are guiding you effectively, there won't be any surprises. There should not be any surprises.
Stiles Law is located on Route 139 in Marshfield. Stiles-law.com. You can get in touch with Mark Stiles and his great team to talk more about this and other topics as well. Right, Mark?
Absolutely. We could be reached at 781-319-1900. 781-319-1900. And not only real estate, but estate planning. And that is becoming very popular right now. As we close out the year, people are wondering if they checked the box or if they fulfilled that goal of the year. We are doing our open dialogues on Tuesdays with Ben, and obviously at any point in time you can have a free consultation with the estate planning team and accomplish those goals, wishes, and aspirations.
Good stuff today. As always, Mark Stiles, Stiles Law, Route 139 in Marshfield. It's Feel Good Friday, and we do this every Friday right after the news at 9, so join us. Mark, have a wonderful weekend.
You as well, Rob. Have a great week, everybody.